So as we know, cultivating those effective skills for testing doesn't just lie on the teacher. The teacher can help bring in those mindset and those skills, but the student plays a really vital role in this whole wraparound. And so we know that students have been working all year long in cultivating so many different strategies, but what we would like to do is take you through a test-taking inventory, and then those are directed towards the strategies that those students need to learn. So they're like leveled up strategies for a student, because we know that all students are coming into our classroom at different levels, and their anxiety and their test preps and their organization and their note-taking are all at different levels. And so taking an inventory is a really great place for students to see where their strengths are and where they need a little more work. And then we'll go through some strategies. And then some of you talked about deconstruction of questions, how to understand questions. That is so important at any age group, as deconstructing those questions. And so I have some activities that we can use to unravel those questions. And then of course, students want to have some fun when they're kind of reviewing. And so having those active review sessions and looking at what those are for them is what we're going to do. So in this SMART response that is created, I'm going to go ahead and start it. I'd love you to look at the questions, because what it is that it actually has values on each one of the questions. And I use the poll opinion question in SMART response. And so there's no right or wrong answer. So when you're in it, you can go ahead and see that each one of the questions have a value. And so what students are going to do is they're going to answer the questions according to what their bodies are doing, what strategies they're using. And I can, as a teacher, look and see what percentage of my class has completed this inventory. And this gives a lot of valuable information for me as a teacher. Go ahead and take the inventory. There's probably questions in there that you see that you probably feel like when it's time for your students to test too. And putting this together, I can actually, for the younger primary students, instead of having them take the poll, they can have their device and the SMART response, but the teacher could read the questions to them. And then in the poll, you could have like a red dot, which would be an image, a green dot, and a yellow dot that they can pick, like, yes, this is me, no, this isn't me. And then sometimes this is me. And then they can add up the different colored dots so that they would know where they will go for their activities. I'm going to go ahead and in this activity so you can kind of see the results. And so if I have this, we could go through this and I can say, all right, this gives me a lot of information without names, right? I have headaches or nausea before, during the test. Wow, if I look, there's quite a few of you who are always or sometime. That gives me a lot of information about my students and how I'm going to respond to them in their environment and what I'm going to be working on. And I can go through each one of these questions, and while we're doing this, you on your device can be adding up the different points. So like A is worth 1 point, B is worth 2 points, and 3 is worth, or C is worth 3 points. And so I can go through and see where my dispositions of my students are. My heart beats faster and my body shakes before, during the test. Wow, see, most of us are always or sometime. There's hardly anybody that's never, and I think I'm in the same boat. I'm not able to sleep before a test. And so after we do this, students can add up the results from their inventory. And they can go in and you can send this out to your students, these next couple slides, and then it becomes personalized and they get to really focus on the skills that they need to power up for those testing days. So if you had 35 to 51 points, you're doing really good. But you know what? Remember that mindset? We're going to continue to study so we can do even better on the next one. And so students would then click on this page right here, and you can import a YouTube video and they can watch it. And what I like about this video is that there is a before, a during, and an after test prep. So it talks about the whole encompassing testing period. And it's really fun, and students can watch it over and over again. And then we can go back to the second group, which is that middle group. And again, it gives them kind of a positive affirmation. It's like, you know what, you're getting there. You're doing really great. And you know what, we need to do a little bit more with our body and our mind. And so if they click on the study tips, they're invited to do a flip out. And I love this flip out because it has so many different options that students can do. But the flip out actually has 3 different components, and I created 3 different strands of cards and color coded them. And one of them is a card that says, what is my body feeling? And so the students can say, well, you know, I have sweaty palms. What does that mean? Or my heart is pumping. Well, your heart is pumping because you're nervous, but nervousness for a test is actually okay to an extent, and it helps the blood flow, which means that our minds are clear. And so there's different cards that explains that. It also explains perspective, like, well, you know, how long is this test going to last, and what am I going to think about it a year from now, 2 years from now, a week from now? And so it puts it in perspective. So that's a great strategy for students to kind of put it in a perspective mode. And then the third one, which is the one that I really feel like we need to pay attention to and give a lot of TLC to, is that these are the students who are very nervous when taking their test, and they are, you know, maybe don't have all the skills they need to be ready to take the test before the test starts, weeks before, maybe even months before. And so doing this inventory might be really helpful to do way before testing, like Jeremy said. And so this is a sorted, and what students do here is they have to put in the different, like, is it an organizational tool? Is it an effective study tool? And when they use like a binder, just using a binder and keeping organized, that is a really great testing strategy. And then, you know, write assignments in planner, which way to go if it's wrong. The way to extend this activity is for them to you know, write it down and actually make some goals on which ones they're going to use in the next week, and then have a check-in with them. And so that testing inventory is really important to fill out the test strategies. That's a way to kind of leverage students, because we're all at different places. So students have to learn how to deconstruct or unravel a question. This one, in my experience, has to be explicitly taught. It doesn't matter what grade level. The tests are more complex. They are different tests, or different questions that they ask in a test. And so we have to teach this explicitly, and we have to do it in a natural flow in the classroom. And we don't just pick it up the week before testing, right? We're using these examples throughout the year. So when students see them, they're going to have those skills and strategies to be able to unravel. And so in order to deconstruct a question, you know, we need to have our students read the question and rewrite it in their own words. That is such a powerful tool. And that also takes explicit teaching, and how to take that question and put it, I call it, into that, like I taught 6th grade. So let's put it into 6th grade words. One of the things we know, if we've been teaching for a really long time, those tests are not just multiple choice or true false anymore. Students, even in 1st grade and 2nd grade, are now having to construct responses, and they have to give evidence, and they have to have text dependent, and there's computational questions, and there's just so many things that they're asking our students to unravel when they're reading these passages and these questions in these tests. This is a biggie, and every grade level if you're doing high stakes tests, have command terms that they use. Whatever test you're using, find out what those command terms are, because there is a pattern to them and it helps reinforce what is required. And so having students know what those words are and know what they mean will help them dissect those questions. And then lastly, here's the big one is, we need to answer the question and all its parts. It's not just simply one little question and then we move on. There's sometimes a part A, a part B, and a part C. So we need to teach our students how to break those questions into chunks and smaller parts and then analyze each one of those parts. And so I have some activities that would help your students. You can modify them and put the words that you need. But here's an example that, and this one is about a third grade example of what they're asking for in tests. So looking at that, explain, use, those are command words. Analyze, justify, compare, contrast, those are all command words. So if we can teach our students how to identify those and know what they mean, they're going to be a step ahead on that game day. Also, another thing I want to point out is that depending on what type of test you're giving, if it is a computerized test, students need to have time to be on the computer throughout the year, obviously. The other thing is they have to know how to use those universal tools that the tests are going to require, because we all know that on those testing days, especially the high stakes testing, us teachers have to take a step back, and facilitating and giving these learning mindsets and the growth and skills that our students need to succeed without us is such a huge impact. We have to be able to let our students fly when we're not able to say anything, and keep their motivation going. So this is just an example question. If you haven't seen any like that before, they are killers. They are just so hard, but we can dissect them. And students get pretty good at it. So my suggestion is that you get a hold of some practice tests from your state if you haven't already, and let the students go through them and highlight those and underline and explain those command words. So here's a game that you can bring into your class that helps with the command words. Having those tests in front of the students will really help them. So if you would sort and match up these command words, and of course every grade level is different. So if I say compare and they have to match them up, and if they get it right, let's see which one. Similarities between two or more, it'll go right on in this match them up. If analyze is let's say the difference between, it will shoot it back out. And you can make, as a teacher, when you're doing these smart lab activities, you have the ability to change how you want them to check their answers. But the command words are very powerful, and I highly recommend making sure that your students have a set of them to put in their tool belt on testing day. And then another one is the fill in the blank, is to take your content area, if you're a science teacher or if you are a math teacher, and pull out those academic vocabulary words, those tiered words that students are going to see on the testing day. And then they can fill in the blanks and just go ahead and pop in their answers, and they can have a conversation with each other. And this is one more way to reinforce those command words. This is a slide I think everybody needs to have, because this is really, I didn't know this for a long time, and then when I started using Smart Notebook and the lab activities, I realized that you can save a lot of the lists and question sets that you create in one of the lab activities, and you can use it in another lab activity, right? So that is a win-win for students, because you can change the activity. You can let the students have a choice on which one they want to use to activate their prior knowledge. And down below, and this is a chart to tell you which activities support each other. So for example, I can create a speed up with a question set. And then I can also take those questions. If I save them in Smart Lab, I can put them in Monster Quiz. And then now I can make that activity a collaboration activity. And then I can take those same questions and put them into a game show. And now I can have it be a competitive activity. And then I can put it into a smart response where I can get some summative information about my students, some data. So this is a really valuable a slide, a page for you guys to use in the upcoming days.